Boris Johnson is legally correct. There's a very good report by the House of Lords European Scrutiny Committee, which set out that if we leave without a deal, under EU, international and UK law, we owe no money. And that's a very good starting point.
So without a deal, is it?
Without a deal, that's right. So then you're saying, what is it in our interest to pay to get certain other elements that we want? But their starting negotiation position from the EU point of view is they have no legal basis for demanding these payments.
No, but they're saying that is the gateway to getting a deal, and you want a deal, don't you? Or would you like no deal?
They're saying a moral obligation. But a moral obligation ranks for less than a legal obligation.
No, but they're also saying that's how we can part as friends. I mean, what's your personal view? I mean, we have entered into obligations, haven't we?
The obligations cease on the day we leave the European Union. That's completely clear.
Even for programmes which are continuing to run?
If we want to maintain part of specific programmes, that's clearly different. The Erasmus programme, the Horizon 2020 programme, I have no difficulty with us continuing to contribute to those. There is then a negotiation on what Brexit looks like, and if money oils the wheels, we have it, they want it, but we should make sure we get a great deal in return for that.
Power grab by the executive. It's not giving power back to the sovereign parliament.
I think that's a misunderstanding of what's happening. This is a two-stage process. Currently, all those powers are with Brussels. They will come back to Westminster, and from there, I hope and expect many of them will be devolved, and that will be a matter of discussion between the devolved parliaments and the United Kingdom Parliament. And Parliament will then determine what laws are made in future, because as was established, yes it will.
If the secondary powers are used by the government,
secondary legislation always goes through Parliament. Now, sometimes, yes it does, even on a negative resolution, if enough MPs object to a secondary resolution...
Completely wrong. Sorry, Jacob.
The government cannot resist a prayer against...
Jacob, I'm sorry, I'm going to correct you, because in 2014-15, there were 19 prayers against, and not a single one led to a vote.
But the 19 prayers did not have a majority of Parliament praying against it.
So you've got to have a majority.
No,
that's the government.
No, what I'm saying is that for secondary legislation there always has to be either the tacit or implicit consent of Parliament.
But
that is always the case.
The only way you can assess whether there's the assent of Parliament is if you have a vote and a debate. And the government over the last 2 years simply hasn't been allowing us to do it.
If 326 MPs to support a prayer against a negative instrument, you would find that there was a vote in Parliament invariably. As it happens, I do agree with you that the government should be more open to allowing prayers against the negative resolutions when signed by leading figures in the opposition.
Can I be helpful, and just to help, could we conclude?
The British people have voted to leave, the House of Commons has voted to leave, Professor Grayling wants us to stay. I'm with the majority.
May I? Because this phrase, the British people, I do think it's the most terrific catchphrase. We're really talking about a quarter of the population when you sum up who that 37% of the restricted franchise was.
Well, I think this is such nonsense. The figure gets lower and lower for Professor Grayling's convenience. The British people voted in a fair election, and a majority voted to leave.
A minority
I think to call
of them
them the British people is extremely fair.
A minority of them did, and I have to say, with very great respect, that to see an old Etonian stockbroker on the far right of the Tory party representing himself as a tribune of the people, representing the interests of car workers in Sunderland, is mildly implausible.
Are you being Etonist?
What I want to say is that this
that
referendum
either the professor of the New College of the Humanities or I should throw stones at each other about our backgrounds.
Well,
particularly.
Let me say this, that it's not the people that Mr. Rees-Mogg is representing, it's his people. Because the kind of Britain that he wants, a low-tax Britain, a Britain where there isn't enough money for the NHS and for state education and for welfare and for environmental protection.
If we don't give it to the EU.
Well, you want to privatise it. I mean, you don't use it, you want to privatise it.
I don't privatise the NHS. I've never argued for the privatisation of the NHS. You're putting words into my mouth.
What does this word mean?
The act or habit of estimating as worthless.
Estimating something as worthless.
Yes. And what was the word? Just remind me.
Can you give me the Latin derivation?
Oh, well, no, not offhand.
Can't you? Why not? You use words and you can't give the proper derivation.
Well, I don't always have to give the etymology of every word I use, but I can pronounce it.
I mean, everyone knows it comes from flocci, meaning a whisper, a piece of wool, knocci, meaning a trifle, and pillai means nothing, and pillai meaning a hair or something insignificant. I mean, it could have been flossio non facio. What does that mean?
I couldn't give a straw.
That's the literal interpretation.
I know, yes. If you were being rude, you might say I couldn't give a damn, but I wouldn't be
Why
so
didn't you
rude
use the smaller one rather than the longer one?
I didn't think of it, actually. Floxinocunihilipilification came to mind, as it does from time to time.
Does it often come to your mind?
It's one of those words I've known since I was a schoolboy.
When it comes to your mind, is there room for anything else in your mind?
Lots, and particularly pointing out that what we are wanting to indulge in the floxinocunihilipilification of, which is the European Court of Justice, which is the key point. That
Not the
judges,
European Court in Strasbourg.
No.
The one in Luxembourg.
The ECJ ruled to their own benefit that the pay rises of European officials had to go through, and that included their own pay. And this is against one of the most important principles of justice, that you should not be a judge in your own cause. And thankfully, using this odd word has got some attention to that tremendously important point of corruption in the law courts of Europe. And it's
okay,
very
you made
important
that point,
to get
and you
that
made
point
it in the
across.
Commons.